right, in this track, we are breaking down London's on Fire. Let's go. What we're going to do is going to basically just try to extract all the arrangement secrets we can from the arrangement so we can make better music. We can arrange our tracks in a way that engineers the listener's experience so that when our tracks are played in a club, either by yourself if you're a DJ, or if you are sending your tracks to labels and DJs, your tracks are going to go off in the club. And so we're going to try to learn what we can from this in terms of arrangement. We're going to keep it as high level as we can and really just focus on the arrangement. So I'm going to press play and we're going to map out the track, creating MIDI clips. Pay attention to the way especially the hooks and groove develop over time. All right, so let's freaking hit it. Let's go. So just intro, right? So I'm just going to write in beats, and beat is just going to be the drums. So let's go ahead and create a little MIDI clip here. And I'm going to color this orange, or I guess I'll color it red. Cool. And so right away we have like a full kick. I'm just going to make a note of that. You know, sometimes you'll have like a high pass kick, making it easier for DJs to mix in because they don't have to do the hard work of putting the high pass on when mixing. Little splash hat. We're going to probably come back to that, but just a sound of the times right now. A little indie dance disco influence. A little skippy, a little syncopated hit right here. All right, another splash hat. A little toms. Right there. Cool. Let's go right here. Cool. And so if everyone's wondering like, hey, let me just make my intro as creative as possible so as little DJs as possible play the track. Here's an example of not doing that. But basically, there are some little cool things here. Like one of the things you could do in the intro is to like just add some little uniqueness, but trying to keep it as simple as possible for DJs mixing in. But you hear that little kind of rim shot in the background that's kind of playing with the clap. It's got like a little bit of reverb, maybe not necessarily a rim shot, but definitely some kind of like block sound with the reverb on it. You can also hear, this is a very small detail, and then we're going to move on. You can also hear one of the little block hits pitching up on one hit. Here, let me see that. It's kind of hard for me to detect a pattern on there, but some of those things are going up and down, but for sure. All right, what else? Just that little hit. Probably the most unique things in there are the toms, but here we're going to move now into the bass drop, which makes me think I'm just going to create like we'll just call it a map for now, but this is going to be the high level arrangement map. So I'm going to just call this the intro. And then I'm going to color this brown. And then getting in here now to what I call the bass drop, where we drop the bass. We're just going to drop the bass line. Now, a lot of times right here, you're going to drop some kind of like tease of the hook. But in this case, I don't think that they do. It's just they just go right into it, which I love. Just like not making it complicated, right? Cool. A little bit of a pull in there with the kind of reverse. All right, so we got kind of bass. One thing I want to point out right away, we'll probably come back to this, but if we come right here, how the bass is a little bit more open over here in the first drop. We're going to get to this, but over here, though, it's pulled back, and that's just one thing I wanted to point out. All right, just keeping things a little bit more subtle, right? So giving yourself room to develop later on. Like right here, like DJs are barely mixing in. They probably got the low end cut out. You're not trying to get too much into the space of the other track, trying to keep it subtle as the DJ kind of mixes up. So here, just trying to keep things kind of chill. And then from a listener's point of view, like this is where you're introducing just the groove. So for me, groove is the drums and the bass. We're not putting hooks on yet because we don't want to overwhelm the listener, right? We just want to put the groove in here, teach them kind of how the basics of the groove kind of work. So that kind of just, they get it, they're dancing to it, their body understands it, it moves to the background of their mind, right? Just moves to the subconscious. And then they're ready for the hooks, right? So just kind of like also a little bit of storytelling, a little bit of unfolding over time, introducing the characters in a strategic way to make them experience just a little bit more simple and progressive, you could say, for the listener. Digestible, that's kind of what I was trying to think of. One thing, again, I want to point out are these splash hats and where they're happening. And I'm going to just create a track right now because I know we're going to talk about this in this song. And maybe I'll put it below the arrangement map here. But I'm just going to kind of start mapping this here, and here. All right. And we'll come back to this. I might end up, I'm definitely going to talk about this, but if I don't keep up with the punks map here, then, you know, not the biggest deal because we'll definitely talk about it. Cool. All right, and then we're going to get the little Vox, I'm just going to call it a Vox little rep pin that kind of plays in this track, and that's right here. And this is classic. When we get into the bass drop right here, again, the first move we're going to make is just drop the bass, keep it simple. And so that's why I wrote here, bass drop equals just full groove. But here, we're going to call this the bass BD lift. And the bass drop lift, so the lift in the second 8 bars, this is classic. And this is where you're just going to lift in some way. And what I mean by lift is a specific thing where you just have a sound that lifts the energy in some way, that just steps up a little bit, gets added to the picture. In this case, it's just a little Vox rep, but it could be a drum lift. For example, let's say that they wanted to add in a bigger open hat right here. That would be an example of a lift. And when it comes to like when lifting drops or lifting like the second 8 bars in the drop, or later on down the line we might come across stuff like this, it just doesn't really matter what you do, but it matters that you do it, if that makes sense. Because like if you just lift with something, it's better than nothing, I guess, you know. And so here we're just lifting with that little vocal kind of chop and rep. So okay, hold on, let me see. Okay, so another little lift here, over and above, and lift just means over and above what came before, right? And so here we're gonna get this little, like, I'm just gonna call it perk SD, just a little sound design percussion. And I'm just gonna move this right here, but if we listen, right, bop, bop. All right, so just like that, cool. And then boom, we get that tom again. Is that always playing at the 4? Yeah, it is. Okay. And the 1? Okay, so just playing on, okay, cool. All right. So let's get some of the effects going. So I'm just going to create the effects channel. So we got effects up, we've got effects down, and we've got effects accent. There we go. And so cool. And so this right here, just a reverse symbol, right? So go like this, rev crash. And then I think over here we just had like another reverse. I'll just call that like a reverse clap. Got to zoom in here. Clap. Cool. And that little kind of boop boop thing plays right here. So that's going right here. Bam, bam. And then also getting played over here. Okay, cool. So here now what we're doing is we're moving into break 1. And this is gonna, let's actually keep it. Let's do break 1A, right? Because this is the first 8 bars. And then here we have, we're gonna do high pass beat right here. Okay, and then here we, I just wanted to hear if the bass was continuing, and I think that it is. You can kind of still hear this underlying bump, 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 bump. So if I come over to the master here, you can still hear the kick and the bass going. And I'm not talking about that new sound that comes in, but I'm talking about, you can still hear that, right? Even when we're down here. So the beat off beat is what I'm listening for. That's still playing right there. Okay, cool. So the bass is there. However, there's like a bass layer that gets added. All right, so a bass layer. And it's played a little bit more continuous. Right? So, I mean, you might as well even call that like a synth, but it's really playing in the bass, like octaves. It's high passed out for sure, but it's a bass sound. Cool. And so it's basically going from D to D sharp, or technically E flat, but there's some interesting pitch stuff going on with this. Like there's even like pitch bend like early on, like right here. Then there's a note movement up. Right, you can hear that small little pitch bend happening right there. And then the note up. So, okay, cool. Okay, cool. So this is, we got like a big, so we got shot, and then, so it's going to be like reverb and delay right here. So reverb and delay. All right, cool. And of course we have those big toms. Tom big. Cool. So bump, 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 bump. Bump, bump, bump. So bump, bump. So these aren't exactly the notes. I'm just mapping out. So it goes dun 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 dun. Let me just listen right here. If there's a, nah, I think it's just that last one. Cool. And then there's a little bit of a layer on top of those last three. It's like a little bit of a clap layer. So cool. And so I'm just gonna map that. Why not? Right. So clap layer on top of this, and so dun 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 dun. Cool. So here, and then go like this. I'm just calling it a clap, whatever. This is cool though. Like both of these right here, this is like an entry. All right. And so I'm gonna put this up here. So it's gonna be like break entry. And when we're in a break, what are we trying to do? We're trying to give them a break. How do we do that, right? What are we giving them a break from? Well, over here, we got the full groove, right? We got the drums, the full bass, full kick, full bass. And then here, what we're going to do is we're going to high pass things just to kind of take the low end away. And so that stops people from kind of dancing full on, right? And so when people aren't dancing, what are you going to do, right? Well, you got to occupy their attention somehow. So this is typically where the main like hook comes in. So of course over here we're going to get the main hook. All right. And so when it comes to a break, probably the two most important things are, number one, give them a break, and two, present the main thing. And so that's what's going to happen here. Other things early on right here would be to keep the groove alive in some way, because this is too early on to kind of cliff dive into nothing. You want to just kind of keep things moving as the DJ is mixing into a new track. You just want to kind of build up that momentum. So if you're just going to drop into nothing here, just full on break time, that's too much. So you want to keep the groove alive here. Other things you could do would be create a sense of atmosphere, a new sense of space. And so right away, like when we move into the break right here, listen to how we're going to get a sense of space. What is giving us this new sense of space? Check it out. All right. Right away, you can hear it. There's something. It opens up. It literally feels like it opens up. The really weird image that's coming to my mind right now is like, imagine running through like corn stalks or something. And then boom, you just open up, run past all the corn stalks, and you just open up into this wide open pasture. That's what it feels like for me going into a break. And right here, this sound, that reverb on that little Vox chop right there, that's what opens things up. Like, yes, the kick goes away. Yes, we're getting the tom entry, but what gives that sense of things opening? And it's the Vox chop right there, the delay and the reverb on it. All right, and this is just a little entry, right? And this is going to be something, again, we're going to talk about later, but. Okay, so here we're getting this thing right there. So we're getting a delay on that, right? And so delay and reverb are the two most powerful tools for just creating the sense of space and openness. Now, we don't get a delay over here, I don't think. Let's just see. Nope, it just cuts, right? It's clean, it just cuts off. But here we're getting a delay. Things are dragging out longer. All right, and so I'm just going to put mono delay on this because this thing is down the middle. The sound itself, this guy is a little bit wide, and I'm just going to actually like flip the name of this, so SD perk, because it's not really a drum to me. It's more a little sound design thing, but it's acting kind of like a percussion. But to me, it's more sound design than percussion, so there we go. Ooh, there we go again, right? So here we go. Okay, cool. And I'm going to write like pong delay because this is a ping pong, right? You can hear it bouncing left and right. And I heard the pong over here. And the first thought was, whoa, are they doing a pong over here? That would be kind of cool to have like a pong or not a pong here, just like opens up, reverb, delay down the middle maybe. But then over here, change it up with a little ping pong. That'd be interesting. But they're using the same one. So we got the ping pong delay over here, and we've got the ping pong delay over to the right as well. So I'm just going to color this something else. Just a little different color there, and cool. But again, you can see things are just dragging out, right? Like they're just opened up, right? It's not so tight. It's not so cut and dry like you would expect in a drop. And all of this just gives the sense that things are kind of slowing down. It's break time, right? We're breaking things down. All right, cool. So I'm just going to put a little thing here because it's just a little reverse, but it's pretty much the same as this one. So I'm just going to copy this actually. Cool. And there we go. All right. So we've given them a break. Now it's time to present the main thing. Now you could totally just do it over here as well, right? Maybe they felt it was a little bit rushed to do that. Time turns. All right. So give a little bit of break time here, let things kind of open up with the delay, and then move into the vocal. So here, this is just like, I'm just going to call this pure break time. Just really slowing things down. Break 1B here is going to be vocal. So let's just go like this, Vox, vocal. All right. And then, of course, we need that main vocal. So Vox lead, we'll call it lead vocal, main vocal, doesn't matter. And then just move this in here. Cool. Anything change in the drums?
Time turns.
You can hear the high pass on the drums start to come up a little bit. So if I play right here, do you hear how the low end is still pretty? It's not like crazy in there whatsoever. But if I play here and then I play here, you're going to hear the low end go away. So you're going to get this high passing from the bottom up. Hear that? Low end, right? Not really. And so
Time turns. Get up now.
And so we'll put this in there. This is really subtle, but HP up a little. All right. So high pass up a little bit.
Time turns. Get up now. Can't wait your turn. London's on fire.
And so it's a lot harder to hear if the bass is still there, but
Wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris.
I'm just going to bring it over because there's really no reason to take it away. You know, from like a producer point of view, it's like, might as well leave it, like, whatever.
Time turns. Get up now. Can't wait your turn.
But we still need to watch out for this sound, so I'm going to put this right there.
Time.
So that's there.
Time turns. Time turns. Time turns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. True respect, it's yours to earn. I'll select it. You.
Notice how when the vocal's playing, this sound isn't really there anymore. Yeah, the delay continued here, but they're not getting in the way of the vocal, right? When the vocal's there, it's king, right? Don't get in the way of it.
Yours to earn, I'll select it. You can turn, resurrect it, no concern. Remember when we used to go to the rave, to the dance.
Cool. Let's cut all that because that's cool. That is where a dramatic edit into the build here. And so here we're going to get a break 1 C, and this is going to be build. Now, really the way that I would break this down for myself is I would do, let's do this. Let's do break 1 A. Oh, man. Let's do break 1 A, and then break 1 A, B. And then we're going to do break 1 B. Is that, you know what? No, there's definitely a better way to do this. All right, so we're going to do A.1, and then we're going to do A.2. There we go. Because for me, this is just break, and this is build. So maybe I'll color this a different color. So I'll color it orange, because as we transition to the red drop here, this is the build. All right, so we get this nice dramatic kind of like cut to the vocal to kind of kickstart the build.
Remember when we used to go to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
All right, so we're getting that little reverse again. So let's move this over here.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
And look at that, we're getting entries again. All right, so I just want to point that out. All right, so entry. And an entry for me is just a sound that begins on the 1. And so, because, you know, you're entering the space. That says entry. Let's go entry. Okay. So.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
So this opens up a lot. Okay. Wide open. Intense build synth / bass, right?
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
But all this, let's just copy this over.
To the rave, to the.
We got this cool like vocal thing, like Vox whatever. I don't know what to call it, but it's happening right here. So
to the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
So this is verb and delay, right? So a similar kind of thing, but it's more intense, right? Things are opening, things are getting more intense. So listen to this guy right here. Right? But listen to this one.
To the rave, to the dance. To
right? Same idea, but it's more intense. And so my word for this right here is an elevation. This sound, this entry is elevated over and above this entry right here, right? It's a bigger sound, it's more intense, and it makes sense. Like
to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
Okay, so here we're getting some up effects, of course. So up effects just being risers. So kind of tonal riser, right? And we'll definitely probably hear some white noise too, like cool. Staging it meaning that now here we're in 4 bars, new things are coming in. So this is just going to be a snare roll. All right. So here we go. Okay, cool. And so it just cuts right there. So this just goes as a low pass up. So and this thing is actually still going, you know, like cool. And you can hear there's a new riser that is added in here. And I'm going to actually give this one a special name. So this is going to be effects up, but peak out. Okay. So take them to the top, in other words. For me, those mean the same thing. You want to peak out the build. You want to take the listener to the top. And that's what this guy is doing. Here we have this riser. Right? You can hear that. But here you have a new riser come in along with the snare roll that just takes us all the way to the top to this moment right here, 71. You hear a little bit of reverb on the main vocal. So let's move this guy over. So this is going to be rave, dance, rep, which is a classic thing to do. So when you're building, you want to build tension. That's what a build is, right? You build up. You break down and then you build up. And so when you build, you're building tension. How do you build tension? Rep, roll, rise, grow. Okay? Hook repetition. Rep roll, so snare roll, crash roll, kick roll, rise, risers. This is an example of a riser too, where the low pass opens on the snare. And then growing the space. And they are using every single one of them. Every single one of them are being used right now. And the important thing is, like, you could think of rep, roll, rise, grow. These are the ingredients of building tension. You could think of it as a menu. Now, everything is on the menu. Doesn't mean you need to choose everything, but you certainly can choose everything. And they're choosing everything right now. Well, for the most part, right? They're not using like crash rolls and kick rolls, but they're using rep, they're using roll, they're using rise, they're using grow. And so the rep is the hook repetition. So to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance. What does that do? It just builds tension when you repeat something, right? It's not sustainable.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, okay. To the dance, to the rave, 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 to the dance. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire.
Cool. So rep, roll, you've got the snare roll right here.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
And you also have a tom roll. This might be the first time I've ever heard a tom roll. I'm going to call it a tom roll. You like doom, 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 doom. So this is just playing eighth notes. So I'm just going to go like this and just loop that around like that. But it's just playing eighth notes, and I think it's just gaining up. So, right, so I'll point that out for you. So if I get like an EQ and we just right there, that's not a kick drum, right? That's a tom, all right? And so that's cool. That's really cool. I've never heard that before, and so that's going to be a takeaway from me. Like, I love this because I get these small little insights, and now in the future, I'm going to think, hey, let me just get like a little tom roll going on. That's new. That's interesting. Let's turn off the high pass. Okay, so rep, roll. So we got a snare roll and a tom roll. We got a riser. So we've got this riser. We've got this peak riser. We've got the snare roll opening up. You're going to think of the tom roll gaining up to is a little bit of a riser, a little bit. You know, it's just the feeling of going up. and then growing the space on the vocal, there's a little bit of reverb. This moves into reverb right here, into reverb, grow here. That doesn't really make that much sense, but I think you get it. You hear that on the dance, you can hear the reverb. And then they cut to dry, all right? And so this is going to be dry pipo. I'll call this payoff, actually, because the vocal's technically not a pipo. The pipo's a structural element. So this right here is going to be pipo. So pipo is something you've heard a million times. We're listening to it right now. It's pattern, interrupt, and payoff. So what happens is we have this building pattern, and that building pattern gets interrupted, right? Just stops. That makes us all freeze in the moment. Like, whoa, what just happened? And then so when that building pattern gets interrupted, then you deliver the payoff. And so that's what a pipo is. Pattern interrupt, payoff, and then you explode into the drop. Doesn't matter how many times we hear that, it just leverages just the way that the brain works, the flight or fight response. That's so hard for me to say. Fight or flight response. But cutting right there makes it so that everyone is totally alert right here. It's the moment that they're paying the most attention, because this just shocks the system, right? It's like, what's going on? And then while they're paying attention at the highest degree, you hit them with the best line. You hit them with a title line. You hit them with the payoff vocal or synth or whatever, the thing you really want them to remember. And then you explode into the drop. And there you go. So let's see.
Get up now, can't wait.
There we go. So a little bit of an accent right here. The kind of crash.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire, what Paris.
This is cool. And then they format it down right there, just as a little extra interest point. So format / pitch down. One of the two.
London's on fire, what.
Sounds like a little pitch. Yeah, definitely pitch.
London's on fire, what Paris burns.
It almost just kind of sets. This is kind of cool. That pitching it down probably an octave. Let's see.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. Wait your turn.
So if I just kind of like isolate this for a second and come in here and just pitch it down an octave. Let's go to complex.
London's on fire, what Paris burns.
Probably not an octave then. Let's see, -5, and then I'm going to move on.
Wait your turn, wait your turn. London's on fire, what Paris burns. Wait your turn, London's on fire.
The cool thing about that is, like, you can see that this isn't some crazy thing, right? This isn't some crazy plugin that people think is going to solve all the problems, right? It's just dropping it down by 5 semitones, I mean. I'm just at -5, and this sound exactly the same, right? So just dropping it down, pitching it down 5.
Wait your turn, London's on fire, what Paris burns.
Sounds like it's even using Ableton's algorithm right there, because those sound identical to me. So, all right, cool. So let's move on.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire, what Paris burns.
I like that little pause in between, though. That's kind of cool.
London's on.
See that? Just literally, like, you know what might have happened is that maybe even in mastering or something, they did this post, like, at the very end. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's just that little pause right there I find really interesting, because it's 2 separate clips for sure, like, or like that pause is interesting. But anyway.
Wait your turn. London's on fire, what Paris burns.
All right, cool. Let's go into the drop now. Here we go. All right, so I'm just going to create drop right here. So it's going to be hook drop 1. And so what is hook drop 1? Hook drop is where you put the hooks over the groove. So like I was saying before, here we have the bass drop where you introduce the groove. You can do a little B lift. So B lift. And B lift is, again, where you just lift in the B section in some way. You can also do a B transition, where it's going to be a transition sound that evolves over time to take you to the next section, right? So any kind of rep, roll, rise, grow thing is a transition sound, because it's preparing the listener for a big change, right? This is preparing the listener for a big change over here. But you can also prepare the listener for a change coming out of the drop, just as a little transition sound. If you're going to do a riser, another thing is that you could throw some delay on the vocal, like anything that just kind of slowly evolves over time and just moves you towards the next section, creating that little bit of forward momentum. And so, but the bass drop there is intended to drop the bass, introduce the groove character. And then when the groove character goes away because you're taking away the low end, well, the listener needs something, and so you hit them with the main vocal. You hit them with the main thing. This is where you present the main thing. And so if you think about it, the two biggest characters in the track, the groove and then the main vocal, they're introduced separately. They're not introduced together. And so that creates a kind of a low-level tension in the listener's mind, which is, are they going to come together? And so here they come together. We'll see if they do, but in general, like they might not in this track, but I'm just saying a lot of times in tracks, that's the way that the setup is. Here you introduce the groove, here you introduce the hooks, and then in the hook drop, you bring the hook together with the groove, all right? And even if that main hook doesn't come together, there's still going to be hooks here. There's still going to be excitement here, all right? And so I don't think the vocal plays here. We'll play it and check it out. But yeah, that is generally the typical setup. So what we could do is we could see how this deviates, but how it still serves as a badass drop. So here we go.
Paris burns.
All right, cool. So this is going to be more open, just like we talked about. Right here, I'll call this the, when you get into the first drop, the first main drop, hook drop 1, HT1, I call this the full development. Because here we're usually going to get the full presentation of the drums. That doesn't mean we're going to have the ride. That doesn't mean maybe we have like these crazy shakers that get added, although sometimes you would. But like if you're right here, it's a little bit more pulled back. Here, we're usually getting the full presentation of the drums and the grooves. Right, so the bass cutoff is just a little bit more open right there. And so, there you go. Cool. All right, cool. So let's start with the sound design hooks. Let's do, let's see, entry. Cool. Kind of reminds me of the little pause that Chris Lorenzo did in Appetite, where he doesn't hit you with the entry on the one, right on the one. He just waits a second, hits you on the two, I think. Okay. All right, let me keep playing. That's cool. So that is a little bit of a development on the bass. And so this is just going to be all, I'm pretty sure, I'll go back and check, but pretty sure they're playing on the D here. So let's go over here. Boom, boom. Let's go across. So there we go. Maybe I'll just like pull these guys back a little bit so you can see it a little bit better in the MIDI here. So okay, yeah. So kind of again, even the structure of this is very similar to Appetite in terms of the sound 1, sound 2, right? So we'll call this sound 1. I'm not even going to call this entry. I'm going to call this sound 1, and this is going to be SD sound 2. So check out the Appetite breakdown, because this is already very structurally very similar. Even given that pause right there again, like pausing after the 1. Get up now. Is that the same sound as this guy? Yours to earn. Not really. Okay. Get up now, can't wait your turn. Cool. And so here we go. Vocal. Cool. Get
up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Whoa.
London's on fire while...
Damn, that's sick. Okay, and so I'm gonna call this as the P8.
London's on fire while Paris... London's on fire while Paris...
We'll call this a bass layer, because it's kind of playing the same thing that's the bass is playing, and it's just a little bit of a layer. So,
London's on fire while Paris...
all right, yeah, this track, there's a lot of cool things to talk about in this. Hopefully the video's not too long, but yeah, there's kind of like a couple core ideas that I want to talk about here.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Damn.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Damn,
London's on fire while Paris burns.
jeez, yeah, really cool. Okay.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Damn. I keep on saying damn and geez, I realize that. But this is like, I'm going to call this the P8 stab. Maybe I'll just call it the sound design stab. So.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Okay.
Paris burns.
Okay, let's see.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
And then we have a little bit of an up effect right here.
Burns.
Okay, let's go like this. Man, I mean, I keep saying this, man, but it's just so subtle. Like the things that they're doing here are so cool and so good. Like, I'm gonna color this a different color here because they're just doing like this little open on the bass. So let's just do like even like super open, I guess. I have no idea. There you go. So just they're doing this too. So they're going. Okay, cool. And so this is kind of more like this. All right, so let's bring over these sounds. And then I think when we finish this section, I'll really start to break down what I'm talking about here. And then we have that lift, right? That's a lift. Look at that. That lift was foreshadowed back here. All right, do you see? Do you see? It's the same thing, all right? This is now the lift of the track, right? It's a well-defined element within the track. Tells the listener where we are. Like, it gives them something to kind of latch onto and remember. It's like a, yeah. Okay, we got to bring this. Ooh, did you hear it? Oh my gosh. Dude. Super cool. I love this. Okay, so then we hear this. So not only back here did we get the lift with the vocal, what else do we get the lift with? This little sound. Okay. Guess what we get over here? Both of them. Like, just remember this. Just remember watching this and just think about how structural this is. Just literally take a second and think about this, how structural this is, okay? Like, when it comes to, like, building out a drop, like, this is kind of the level of detail and structure that you want to go to. This is what you want to think about when you're making the drop, is hitting this level of structure and detail, like, so. Man, it's just so, I love this. This is so good. All right.
To the rave, to
Like every single one of these sounds just makes me so happy. Because it just gives me a lot to talk about because it's so good. Okay.
to the rave, to the dance.
All right. So here we have an edit. Let's get back on point.
London's on fire while Paris.
All right. And what we need to do is we need to put some high passes here. So we'll do HP, and maybe I'll just, I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to write HP. And then over here, though, we have a bigger edit, which, again, this gives us a lot to talk about here. It's crazy. Okay.
To the rave, to the dance.
All right. We got the vocal again
To
here.
the rave, to the dance. To the rave, to the dance. To the rave, to the dance.
So this also opens. This is a different sound, I think, than here.
London's on fire while London's on fire. Wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
I guess not. I guess this doesn't have to be a bass layer. I think this one just opens abruptly right here.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Abruptly. I just want to make sure I don't spell that wrong. So opens slowly, right? Or not slowly, but gradually in comparison.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
Ooh, that's hard to say though.
To the rave, to the London's on fire while to the dance, to the rave.
I don't know. Those sound like different sounds to me. That sounds like a different sound. So we're going to do bass. I'm going to call this P8. P8 is what we're about to get into, but it's the only way I can think about making this precise, which is like, where it just like, it plays at the end of 8 bars here. But it's the same sound, right?
London's on fire while to the rave, to the dance,
This one's a little bit more intense.
to the dance.
This one also verbs out. So, and so I'll just do like wash out kind of.
To the rave, to the dance.
Color that slightly different color. So will let me do it? Yeah, cool. So there we go. Slightly different.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's talk about what I want to talk about here. What I want to tell you. It's just basically the high level of it is just creating moments, really. So we're talking at the level of moments. Let's zoom out. Let's zoom out even more and zoom into what we're talking about. So basically, if you think about the track here, the very top level of the structure, we've got the full track, right? We've got the full layout, the full kind of arrangement, what I call the formula level. Right, this is the formula level. It's like, what's the formula of the track? And this is just an HT2 formula. You've got intro, bass drop, break 1, hook drop 1, main break and build, hook drop 2, and then outro. And for me, that's what I'd call the HT2 formula. So this is a formula level. All right. Now, within the formula, within like the layout range, it doesn't matter. Whatever term you want to use is cool. But within this, like the different tracks here, like the hook drops have a relationship to each other, right? For example, every producer wants to know, hey, I've worked on one drop, I got to make another drop. How do I develop it, right? And so when a producer asks that question, they're asking a question about the relationship between the sections. They're asking a question about the relationship between the drops. And then same with the breaks, right? So this break right here is way bigger than this first break, all right? And so this main break and build here is elevated over and above the first break, right? Now the second drop here can be sometimes elevated over and above the first. Not always, and I think this track is going to be a good example of how the first drop, HT1, this one right here, and the second drop right here are very similar. Like I haven't dived or dove. Wow, I don't know which one is right, but I haven't analyzed this to the degree yet to see how these are really different on a granular level. But I know that they're very similar. All right. And so where were we? So we're talking about formula level. And then we talked about within that formula, how the different sections of the track relate to each other. So from the formula level, we could talk about the relations level or the story level also. We won't get into the story level though, because that requires a lot more. But just you could think about how the parts relate to each other. Okay. And so now we're going to step into the sections themselves. And so when we're in a section here, or we're in the drop, right? Or if we're in this section here, which is the main break and build, if we're in this section here, which is HT2 or the drop, what goes in inside the sections, right? So here we have the top level, then we have the relationships between those sections at the top level, but then now we go into the sections themselves. And so in the sections, what can we do? Well, we can have an A section, B section, for example. All right, so right here, this is a good example. Even the bass drop is a good example of inside the bass drop section, we can have an A section and a B section. All right, so right here, we got groove, and then here we have a couple lifts, which are right there. But that's all that's going on. Like, that's what I want you to see. The only thing that's happening is here we have an A section, groove. Here you have a B section. What are the B section lifts? These things. That's all that's happening. It's not crazy. That's all that's happening. And so that's a good example of A section, B section. Now, if we were in a longer drop, if we had a longer drop, this one's 24 bars right here. And then this one would be like, actually, no, this is a good example right here, this one. So again, top level would be This would be A section. And then this next section that we haven't even gotten to yet, though, this is going to be the B section of this. A little bit of a bridge section too, but we're going to call it a B section because it certainly is, because of the difference, the huge difference that happens here than here, right? This right here can be definitely considered an A section because we just have this kind of alternating sound 1, sound 2 setup right here. That's also in appetite. But the point is that when we're in the sections themselves, we can talk about the next layer down, which is A section, B section, okay? And then we can keep chunking down, okay? So what about inside the A section? What can we do? How can we structure the A section? And that's when we get into something that I call CLT stories, all right? I'm not going to go too deep into that because I just want to zoom in on the important one here, which is lifting or transitioning. I guess we could break down a little bit, but the basic idea is inside the A section. Inside the A section here, we've got the first 8 bars, which defines the chill. CLT stands for chill, lift, transition. So this is the chill section. And what I mean by chill is just normal. You can think of it as normal. This is the new normal. And then the next 8 bars within the A section is where you can lift or transition, right? And so it's a slight deviation or elevation from the normal, right? This is normal. This is like, boom, something happens where we're now elevated, we're stepping up from the normal. So what happens? Well, we get this vocal sound, and then we also have that little sound right here. All right, cool. And so, again, so this is normal right here, okay? If I play from 77, just before 77, right? That whole 8 bars, just normal. But right here, this sound right here is a lift, all right? And so if I play just before 85, you'll hear the vocal, and you'll hear this little sound. So these are the lifts within the A section. Okay? Those are the lifts within the A section. And so again, zooming out to the drop here, we have the drop, and then inside the drop, we have the A section, B section. Inside the A section here, we've got a lift here in the B. That's still not even where we are. We can continue to chunk down, all right? And so now we're inside the individual 8 bars, right? So the whole drop here is 24 bars. We can structure the drop as a 16-bar A and 8-bar B. Inside the 16-bar A, we have 2 8-bar sections. And the second 8-bar, the way that these two are related is the second 8-bar section is basically the same underlying hook structure, but the second 8 bars has these lift sounds, this one and this one, right? That's all that's happening, right? There's some edits and stuff, but that's what we're getting to. And then inside the 8-bar sections, how do we sequence the sound? How do we organize the sound? And that's the level that I want to talk to you about, right? This is way down in the details of arrangement, right? And I gave like a 10-minute overview of my entire arrangement theory just there, but it's all just getting down, funneling down, right? Think about it. We're funneling down from this top level all the way down into a moment-by-moment sequence within an 8-bar section of a drop. So all the way out to all the way in, right? All the way up, you could say, to all the way down. And that's the level that we're talking about on why I think this track is so cool. I'll call this the punks and edits level, but I'm changing the name recently to the moments level. These are the moments you're creating, right? Inside the 8 bars. And so this is what I want to talk about. So let's walk through these, right? So this is why I created the punk map earlier, because this is where we can map it all out, all right? So let's start with punks, because punks are probably the most important concept here. Punks are just punctuation points. Right? Again, we're living inside the 8-bar section. And so maybe what we can do is we can just map it out as MIDI. And so with punks, let's go to a 16-note grid. With punks, again, it's short for punctuation points. And if you think about an English sentence, with punctuation and grammar. Like at the end of a sentence, you have a period or something, right? But in the middle of the sentence, maybe you have like a comma, right? But the point is that there's a hierarchy to the grammar and the punctuation marks. A period is more dramatic than a comma. A comma is a little bit of a pause. A period is a full stop, right? And then you can also even think of like an exclamation point. Over here would be like an exclamation point. But we'll talk about that in a second. Let's stay within the 8 bars. And so that's the idea, is like there's a grammar to an 8-bar section. There's a grammar to an 8-bar section. And so there's just these important structural moments that have a hierarchy built in. Now, someone might listen to this and say, hey, this is just ear candy. But for me, ear candy is not a helpful concept. Like, what would I tell a producer? Hey, you need more ear candy. What would that mean to them? They're just going to start randomly throwing shit at the track? They could. They totally could. But most producers actually are afraid of doing something like that because they're going to be afraid of doing something wrong, right? And so that's a chaotic approach to someone who's naturally averse to chaos, you know. And so what do? Well, that's why I like the concept of punks, because punks give you a very clear structure on how to place these sounds, where to place them, and what the priorities are within the placement of the sound. All right, so let's get into it. The most important ones are going to be the punks, is what I call them, at the 8-bar mark. That's and the 4-bar mark and the 1. So the kind of like at the start, at the end, and then in the middle. These are the most important ones because, as you can imagine, like I would even say though the 8 and the 4 are even more important than the 1. The 1 is just this nice little flourish that you can get at the start of a drop, an entry. But the point is, like 1, 4, and 8 are probably the top level in terms of importance, the priorities here. And then from the 8 is going to be more dramatic than the 4, right? And so even right here, if we play this, right, there's a high pass right there. That is dramatic. You're removing the groove and you're hitting them with the vocal. So you're changing the groove, the fundamental nature of the groove by high passing it, because the groove is all about low end and getting people dancing. Now that's gone. And you're hitting them with the vocal. Very dramatic thing to do. You know what I mean? And this is all standard. So all this stuff that you're talking about, you've heard this a million times. I'm just giving you a language for it. And so
get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Boom. And then all those sounds. And we're going to break that all down. But at the 4, there's still things going on at the 4. So let me play right here. So all that little skippy stuff, and then that little sound, and then that second sound, synth sound too. That is all part of what I call the P4 cluster. It's a cluster of sounds. It's a grouping of sounds. All right? And so here, this whole drop is just, you've got your entry here with sound 1. You've got a pretty sophisticated P4 cluster. And then you've got a pretty sophisticated P8 cluster as well. But that's it. That's all that's happening. And so if we play it, we can break down, well, there's one tiny extra thing that's getting added here that I wanted to point out, and that's why I actually created these back here. Is that, so think about this, right? We've got the P8, we've got the P4, we've got the entry, all right? But we can chunk down even further. Remember, what is our goal here? What are we doing in terms of the arrangement theory? We're starting wide and we're systematically moving our way inward to the song, all the way down to the smallest detail, to the smallest structural detail, I should say, right? And so from the 1, 4, and 8, we can then move inside of those, right? To where? The 2 and the 6. All right? And so let's just kind of go like this. So if we go like this, so we can say, here's the 4, here's the 8, all right? And then we can go to the 2, and we can go to the 6, all right? And then if we chunk down even more, now we're just literally going every single bar, and that's the lowest level pretty much of detail. You can go even lower than that, but when you're going bar by bar, you're pretty much at the bottom level. And that's what I want to show you is like when there's this quote from this book. I think the book was quoting it, but something about how screenwriting is structure. right? It's a book called Save the Cat. It's a book on screenwriting. And I think the opening quote for that book is screenwriting is structure. And it's the exact same thing. Like when you're writing a script for a movie, and that's why there's so many analogies, and I love using analogies to the film industry and stuff. But when you're writing a script, it's just structure. You got to make sure you hit these beats. And the interesting thing is that beats in screenwriting is obviously derived or borrowed from music, right? You got to hit these beats in the screenwriting process. But arrangement is the same thing, right? It's structure, right? And then you fill that structure with things that you like, things that you think are cool and unique and interesting and different. And that's what's going on here. But it is extremely structural, right? Because we want to hit the structural moments for the listener. It's what hits the dopamine, right? What creates dopamine is a fundamental structure of tension and release. That itself is a structure, right? Tension, release. If you don't have tension, you're not going to get the release. If you don't have the buildup of dopamine, you're not going to have the ultimate release of dopamine. It fundamentally works on structure. And so that's what these little things are all about. It's just hitting these little moments, all right? And so hitting these moments in a couple different ways. One is just the anticipation of these moments by the listener, right? Subconscious, we don't actually think about it. But the second is the sounds themselves, right? Like we can hear the difference between a cool sound and a lame sound, right? And maybe there's like genre conventions that have to do with that for sure. But you can hit them on two different levels, right? So satisfying the underlying structural parts of the track, but then also the sound design and the sounds that are actually being used. Like both of those kind of add up to create this kind of moment, this little spike in excitement, all right? But let's walk through this because I want to show you what's going on here, how structural this is, and what sounds are actually being used. All right, so check this out. So right away, nothing right away, all right? Because a little bit of that cool little pause before the entry here, the delayed entry in a way. So, man, okay, all right. So here we have this sound. That's the one, right? This is what you can call this the P1, or this is just going to be your entry, all right? So P1/entry, all right? Now listen to the sounds here. So we have that tom that hits here, and we also have the kind of like the main sound, the kind of sound design sound one, right? Okay, now here's a level of detail that goes into moments, right? What I was saying is punks make up one part of what I talk about as moments. Here's another part of moments, triggers and chokes, all right? And so if you listen this whole time, like me going this deep into this, like I really hope this lands. You guys are going to have to leave comments to let me know if this is helpful because I'm going super deep here because this track is like just flawless in the execution of what I'm talking about here. But okay, from the second hit in the track, you hear that tom? Okay. Now, do you think it's just a coincidence that this sound starts when that tom hits? Or is extremely intimately related to it? No, it's not a coincidence. All of this stuff is intentional. Now, I'm not saying let me be really careful about that. I'm not saying Max Styler, Chris Lorenzo are sitting there thinking about punks. They have their own concepts of the things that I'm talking about. This is just the language that I've come up with to describe these things as I'm breaking them down. But what I would call this is a trigger. That tom is a trigger for that second sound. And it creates this intentionality, almost this causality in the track itself that you can hear, you can feel. It's like, boom, this one little tom that we've been hearing this whole time is setting up that moment for when the sound one here is triggered. Right? This level of intentionality is what I miss a lot of times in listening to up-and-coming producers. But of course you would, right? I'm literally talking at the bottom level of detail here. Of course this stuff is missed. You know what I mean? It's not like they're bad, like up-and-coming producers are bad. It's just things to learn. It's levels of detail to learn, you know? And so hopefully these videos help in showing you this stuff, the actual application of it like on the top level. This is top level for a reason because it's so good. So, okay, so we got the drums, we got that tom, that trigger sound 1. What happens next? All right. There's the 2. The splash hat. Is it a coincidence that that splash hat is happening in a gap after this sound and then between this sound? Of course it's not a coincidence. It's a strategic placement of the sound, right? Because we're listening to a song, we're experiencing a song in time. And so there's going to be an order, a sequence to these moments, all right? And so this is the P2. That splash hat is the P2. So P2 and splash hat. Okay, so we'll do entry. We're going to have like tom triggers sound 1. All right. Another thing too that I want to like go watch the appetite breakdown as well, because this is identical in terms of what? What am I going to say? Structure. Identical in terms of structure. You got sound 1, you got sound 2. You got sound 1, you got sound 2. Now, one thing I haven't noticed here yet, and I haven't really listened for yet, is there any development in these sounds? So from here to here, is there a development on that sound? From here to here, is there a development on that sound? Because that would be a lift in a way. Okay, let's keep going here though. So we got P2, and the P2 is the splash hat. Okay, and that's where we're starting to get the P4. All right, so this is going to be the P4 cluster. Did I just mess something up? P4. So let's just map out the sequence. We've got, let's literally map out the sequence. So I'm going to come over here. So let's go like this. So we'll call P4 cluster. Okay, cool. Here we are. Sweet. So then let's come in here. You know what? I'm going to go all the way across here. All right, so let's go like this. So in here. Okay, so there's the first sound. So let's go to 16th notes here. So here. So then we have that little bass right there, right? Is it a coincidence that the double bass isn't playing with this? Of course not, right? I'm just going to keep asking that question. Okay, another splash hat. And then we got, maybe what we'll do is we'll put all these sounds on different channels, because this right here is a snare. This is a splash hat, and we'll go like this. And then we got that little kind of like dove sounding thing. Ooh. And then it takes us to the end, right? And then that kind of just like tails off, all right? But you can see here, like this is what I mean by the cluster. So you can literally see how it maps. Watch. Again. Okay, and there you go. Like we're literally looking at the concepts, you know. They're right there. Okay, cool. And so then what happens next? Get up now, cool, and there we go. And so, cool, we get the splash hat. Now, what's cool about this is the splash hat here almost triggers the P8. So this is going to be a P6. So we'll do P6, splash hat. And then, get up now, can't wait your turn. And then this right here is going to be your P8 cluster. So we'll go Command J, and then we'll do P8 cluster. Cool. So what do we got in here? Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. A whole bunch of crap, right? And I'm crap in a good way, but get up now, can't. So let's go vocal. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. All right, what else? Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on. So this is going to be a high pass. So this is just high pass. Get
up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
So then we get that little stab.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
All right, and then there's a little splash out here. But the thing I wanted to point out is that this right here is a trigger for something. See if you can hear it. This is really subtle, but it's very cool. So that stab sound right here is a trigger for something going away. It's not a trigger for something coming in. It's a trigger for something going away. Watch.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Okay. What goes away?
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
The bass. All right. I just deleted it, right? But if you listen, this stab sound right here chokes the bass, right? So before we were talking about triggers, because here we have the tom triggers the sound one. So here we have the tom, and then we got the start of that one sound. So cool. So let's go like this. Cool. All right, and then but over here, we're getting a choke. It's not a trigger, it's a choke. This chokes the bass. It shuts it off. Just like how, like, if you're gonna, the reason, like, if it's a choke is if you're using, like, a 909 drum machine and you're playing, like, open hats and then you play a closed hat, it will choke the open hat. It will stop the open hat from playing. Just like in a drum. Like, a drummer can't just play and then play an open hat and a closed hat at the same time. And so just kind of looking across here one more time, and then we'll go to the next 8 bars, is just, let's check this all out. So here, so P1, we got the trigger from the tom, then we got the sound one. And so for you, just think about, like, you don't have to have like a trigger into a sound one. You don't have to have all these things going on, but just like, for example, the splash hat is just a splash hat, right? That's it, right? And so you can keep things very simple, but these are fun concepts to play around with. And that's the point, is like all the structural stuff that we're talking about, you could think of them, like my favorite analogy is just like a sandbox. Like, yeah, there's structure on a sandbox, but you can play around inside of it and do whatever you want. And that's the idea. It's like P1 is not really telling you what to do. It's just telling you you could do something here. You know, or you can make an impactful moment here. You can make an impactful moment here and here, or a cluster of things, as we can see what's going on here, right? So this is just obviously a very sophisticated execution of it, and that only comes about, rather, by playing around, right? It's the FAFO graph, right? I'll even put it up on screen. I'm going to be really mad at myself later, but the FAFO graph, right? Fuck around, find out. There you go. That's how you, like, but you just play around here. You play around here. You play around here. It's not like these sounds came together probably, I'm guessing, in like 10 minutes. No way, right? That sequence was probably figured out over a little bit of time. Probably a while, you know, just until it felt right. They're taking out in the truck. Max Stadler's playing it. Chris Lorenzo's playing it. They're going back in the studio. They're moving the sessions back and forth, right? Like, it comes over time, but it comes from playing around, like, inside these little kind of structural sandboxes, you can call them. That's exactly how I think about them. All right, well, let's get back on point. All right, and splash out. P2, P4 cluster. P6, splash out again. And that P6 splash out right there triggers the P8 cluster right here, which is a very high level thing, but you know, there you go. What can you do? I said these videos are gonna be high level.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
And then we have that little reverse too, so I might as well throw that in there, all right?
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Okay, and then we get what? the lift, right? The lifts are a level above moments, punks, triggers, right? It's a level above because it's something that happens across an 8-bar section over and above what happened in the previous, right? So this is the lift right here, the And same with this guy, that doot doot, right? But that's going to add to the P4 cluster. All right, so let's take this guy, map them out, spread them across, and let's see what happens here. So again, I'm not going to count this Vox rep here as a moment thing, right? It's not a punk, it's a lift, right? It's a different category. But here, but check this out, right? So I'm going to color these a different color because, for example, we got this. I would consider this certainly a moment. Without question, that little extra bass thing is a moment, you know, so that goes in here. I'll put it down here, all right? So bun it up. So that gets added. So Tom, and then we get the sound 1. So again, I want to see if that's different than the first one here. No, same thing. So same thing on that. That's cool. Splash hat again, it's just a splash hat. And then here we go, going over to the P4. Okay, little snare hit. Double on the bass, right? And then here we have the sound design percussion come in. Like, is it a coincidence that this just happens to line up on the first hit at least where nothing's playing? Of course it's not a coincidence, because this is where a gap exists to stuff something, you know? So, all right, cool. So let's put this sound in, but I'm going to go above here, I guess, like this. Boop, boop. So there we go. So we got that new sound in there. But we're still getting that little dove sounding noise to me, and then we're getting the sound number 2, right? Sound number 2, synth sound 2. And again, is that any different? Nope, even the delay goes over to the left, over here. And the delay goes over to the left here as well. All right, so exact same thing, all right? Cool.
To the rave, to the rave, to the rave.
Cool. And then what we get here is really cool, which is just a trigger for the edit, okay? And so, maybe I won't map that. Maybe I will, because there's a big sound in there, right? So we'll just do I'm just going to call it a snare bomb, although it's kind of, I guess we can call it a snare bomb. Why not? So there we go. And that kind of just goes out like that. So it goes like this, although I probably shouldn't use that word on YouTube. I should probably come up with a different word. But anyway. Okay, but that triggers this, right? So here we have the P6, and I guess I didn't put in the hat, but we could put the hat in. We're C3 right here. So is this it? Yeah, so here's the hat, and then here's the kind of snare bomb thing that kind of plays out and triggers the edit, right? Triggers that big edit that happens over here. And then here we have, let's see if this kind of P8 cluster continues. So one difference is that the high pass, which is right here, this is the high pass, starts. And so I wonder if okay, no, I'm not going to mess around with that. So vocal, high pass. All right, bunch of crazy stuff going on. Here we have a riser. Like, I'm just going to call it like a horror riser. Oh boy, let's get rid of that. And then, so, riser. To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance. Okay, cool. So this is going to be like a horror kind of thing. To the rave, to the dance. To the rave, to the... So, what do we have? We have the high pass. To the rave, to the dance. Vocal. To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance. Then we switch over to this bass sound. To the rave, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the... But we don't have the stab. You see how we don't have this stab? Because it's, so let's get rid of that in here. So the stab is not there.
the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
We have that kind of horror riser.
The rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
And then what happens is we get this just opening up and verbing. So that's a new sound. And so I'm going to put this one here. It's kind of hard to separate all those there, but I'm just showing you all the sounds, right?
To the rave, to the dance. 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 To the rave, to the dance.
You can even hear the
Rave, to the rave, to the dance. To the dance, to the rave, to the
there's like a little drum thing going on right here.
to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the
Bump. Something like this. And then, is that happening over here? Let's see.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Yeah, it is. So right here.
Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Okay. So
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
cool.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance. To the rave, to the dance.
And then you can kind of hear this. What is that aw right here? There we have this aw. And so this guy.
To the rave, to the dance.
So I was wondering if that's going to be the same as this. Nope. So I'm just going to call this like Vox breath shot. Cool. Kind of like a breathy thing, right? So that actually starts earlier. Starts like right here.
To the dance, to the dance.
So that starts right here. And then so boom. And then this is mostly just delay right here. Okay. Do you see the level of detail I'm talking about? All right. This is like about as detailed as it gets in terms of getting down into those low level moments. But yeah, this right here is what it's all about. I just wanted to talk to you about like punks, which are important structural moments. Much better concept than ear candy, in my opinion. And then you also have triggers and chokes, all sorts of stuff like that to kind of keep things interesting. And so we looked at how like all of that was just perfectly executed here. And more than just, I don't know, perfectly is not even that great of a word. It's creatively executed, right? Like all this stuff are just like structural moments, like do something at the 1, do something at the 4, do something at the 8. Okay. And then you come up with that. Like that's pretty cool, you know? All right, sweet. So moving on, let's now get into the B section, which doesn't come up over here. So this is just kind of a unique section in the track. Let's check it out.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
So definitely have the drums and bass. So let's get these guys over here like that. All right, so B section, because we don't have sound 1 and sound 2 anymore. Like, there's a lot of crazy stuff. Okay, here's something else, too. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on here in terms of the punks and the moments, okay, for sure. But these are still the most important sounds in that whole sequence. Sound 1 and then sound 2. And then sound 1 and then sound 2. Those are the most important sounds, all right? And because those are the hooks. Like, that's what the listener's going to hear. The listener's not going to be able to sit there and pick out all these little things and just like what we did, right? But they're there, but they're going to feel them because they're triggers, they're chokes, they're accents, right? They feel those things, right? They're more subliminal than they are like in the listener's face. These things are in the listener's face. This is the thing that they're going to try to hum with their mouth. Oh, jeez. I'm just waiting for some comments. This is the thing that they're going to be singing, though, you know? But anyway, moving on. And I love that this big-ass stab here, just like, you know, verbs out. We already wrote watches out on the other one, but I wanted to just, like, capture that here, because, boom, almost feels like an entry, you know? And then, again, this is a B section because we don't have sound 1 and sound 2. Sound 1 and sound 2 are what define the A section. And then this B section, we don't have that, but there's a new sound now that defines the B section, which is just gonna be like SD crazy stuff. We're gonna call it SD crazy. Which has tons of cutoff automation, a lot of LFO automation on the cutoff, or even the on the amp, like. Okay, you're gonna get quizzed because we just heard something that we just talked about forever. All right, so okay, let's check this. One thing that's cool about this is that the sound kind of comes in subtly, right? And eases its way in. It's almost like something's like coming down from the sky, right? It just kind of slowly kind of cuts through the clouds in a way, you know? And I'm thinking about it in terms of clouds because it's almost high passing down. It's coming down from the top. But listen to what happens here, all right? We've talked about the concept. And then there's two things I want you to think about. Is like, what is the two concepts that we talked about that happen right here, okay? Both in where it happens in the 8 bars, but also like what it's doing, all right? So let me play it and see if you can get it. There's two things happening here, all right? And maybe you can think of a third or fourth, but for me, there's two really important things happening with the sound coming in. Okay? So it's the tom sound that I want you to pay attention to. So one more time, what's going on? You tell me. Okay, so that, for me, the two most important things that are going on there is it is a clear P4, right? Playing right at the 4. Boom, accent. It could, like, it's exactly right there. The second thing that it's doing is it's choking the synth, the crazy synth. See? Do you see how intentional this is, you know? Okay, and like not just intentional of like, hey, let's choke that, but where are these structural moments happening? All right, cool. So let's keep going. Now, of course, that sound plays, so we got to mark it. So let's go get the big tom sound that played back here, which served as an entry for the break, but now it's serving as a P4 in the B section of the first drop and as a choke for the crazy synth. But let's go get these sounds over here. And we will drop it right there. Cool. Put it in the wrong spot. There we go. And of course, that is accompanied by the clap layer. And not only that, we're getting these sounds right here. The little shots from the lift vocal. Excuse me. And delay on that, and then we're gonna get the again. And where's that happening? The 4, you know. So this guy gets chopped off at the 4. This triggers the 4. This also triggering the 4. You know. Yeah. I can only say it 1,000 times. I can only say it so many times as the saying, but I could really just say it infinite amount of times. Really. Hopefully, then it will come across. Nice. All right, that's cool. And so increasing the feedback right here, let's cut this. So increase feedback for chaos, all right? Whatever the hell vocal that is. Okay, cool. So Vox, but look at where that's happening again. It's happening in the exact same spot that all the other vocals are happening. All right. Now that might, don't want to make too big of a deal about that. All right. Because, you know, the vocal probably would have been fine if it didn't happen 2 bars, but you can see over here, 2 bars, 2 bars, 2 bars. And so in the listener's mind, there's a little bit of a pattern there where we're going to get this kind of 2-bar vocal at the end of the phrase. That's making too much of something. This is just a P8, right? The fact that it's 2 bars really, in my opinion, has no connection to the fact that these 2 vocals are 2 bars, right? Maybe a little bit, but it's not, I don't think that's the important thing. So I'm just going to call this like Vox crazy. It's just a crazy section full of glitches and, all right, cool. So, cool. All right, sweet. So let's figure out what's going on over here at the 8. So you got this, so let's call this like SD horn type of thing going on right here. Whatever it is. Cool. Wow. Let's go from top to bottom because, you know, and again, I should have said this at the beginning, but I highly recommend doing this yourself. Okay, so here we have the high pass. So let's go HP and let's go HP. Cool. So here we have a reverse crash right there. So let's do rev crash. Cool. There's almost like a, let me just listen. It's almost like this kind of train sound that kind of comes up here. So gain up. So kind of like gain up. So almost like an effect, but you can hear it. Cool. All right. So what else? So we got the high pass. Am I missing anything here? We got the beat, the bass. What's the P8 bass? I forgot what that is already. Okay, cool. Nothing like that. Okay. Bass layer. That's in the break. Bass break layer. Cool. Toms, clap layer, snare roll, tom roll, snare bomb. Oh, said it again. That's not good. And then Vox lead. Okay. Got a vocal rep. Let's see where this stops. Let's see. Okay, so that doesn't stop. That just keeps on going. And then we got the vocal, the crazy vocal here, the horn, okay, and the reverse crash. So I think that covers it, right? You really got to dive in and listen to what's going on. Wow. Now, before we were talking about the break. I'm going so deep in this video, but we're only halfway through. And remember I said that what you want to do is create that sense of openness, right? And that's what that sound, the Vox chop into the reverb did. Check this out. Now we're going into the main break and build, right? And so we're kind of running through the cornfields, and the boom, we're about to come into the open pasture. And you can feel that. Check it. Get that feeling, right? That's what you want to create. How is that feeling created, right? How is that transition created? Well, all the elements are there, right? And so a lot of it is just the anticipation that's created before it. And then, boom, a lot of sounds like reverb is going to play a really big role here. And so what is the thing that makes the space feel like it opens up? Like there's a sound on the side that's like wide and kind of low MIDI and just big. And then obviously we'll call it like the little twinkle synth right there. That comes in. And so we've got a siren. So I'm just going to do effects siren here. And let's just kind of.
Time turns.
All right, cool. Sweet. And then what I'm going to do, because this, if you see, this track gets a little bit off the, I don't want to do this prematurely. Let's see. Yeah, okay. This track, it just almost has this kind of 4-bar like kind of bridge section, you can say, like kind of a little of a tag at the end of the drop there, and then the vocal comes in here. But what that causes is it causes the track not to have clean 8-bar sections. You know, I guess not the end of it's certainly not the end of the world based on the results of the track and how awesome the track is, you know. But what I'm going to do just to get everything back on grid is I'm going to just right click up here and go to insert time signature, just like that. And what that's going to do, if I zoom out now, you'll see that for example, the drop lands on a nice grid point right there. You see that? Whereas before, it didn't. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. That doesn't really matter. Let's just keep going. Okay. So this kind of continues here, this delay. So this is just tops. So we'll just go like tops through this section. So like tops. No bass. This is almost like, I'm just going to write male. And this is like a female version of it, in a way. Could be Formant, could just be some other crazy things going on, but just like slowed and glitchy, right? And same thing over here, slow and glitchy. And so, cool. Oh boy. OCD's kicking in right there. All right, sweet. Cool, and then we got that kind of twinkle thing. Let's call it SD twinkle. All right, and then, okay, and that just is like an ARP that goes up kind of thing, and then a little bit of a delay on there. So we'll go delay, and sweet, there we go. A little bit of a sub drop. We'll put that under effects. So effects, sub drop, tool.
Time turns. Get up now, can't wait your turn.
Okay, so that, let's see. So this guy kind of turns it sounds like you say, I don't know what the hell is that, punja or something like that. But that just starts to kind of rep. And so let's just get a random color here, and that's going to continue out. But, ooh, interesting thing about the drums is these are bit crushing down. You can hear like,
time turns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. True respect, it's yours to earn. I'll select it, you can turn. Resurrect it, no concern. Remember when we used to go to the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
All right, cool.
Time turns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris.
All right, sweet. So let's get this here. So this is going to be break. So it'll be break. Cool.
Time turns.
Okay, then we have the main vocal come in right here.
Times.
So like this.
Time turns. Get up now, can't.
Siren goes up again.
Time turns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. True respect, it's yours to earn. I'll select it, you can turn. Resurrect.
Okay, so siren goes away right there. Vocal kind of like starts to kind of phase out or something. Gets phasey.
I'll select it, you can turn. Resurrect it, no concern. Remember when we used to go to the rave, to.
Okay, and then gets clean. And then this cuts, so all the stuff cuts.
When we used to go to.
So I'm going to put this like low accent, because I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. But low accent, big and verby makes it feel open. Just like it's just some kind of like noise bomb type of thing. I wrote accept. Let's go accent. There we go.
time turns. Get up now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns. True respect, it's yours to earn. I'll select it, you can turn. Resurrect it, no concern. Remember when we used to go to the rave.
So this is still going right here.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
And then same thing that happened before, right? It's just teaching people what to expect. Like over here, it just broke down to the rave, to the dance.
To the rave, to the dance.
Right? Same thing here, and then it kicks off the build. But in this case, we're going to get a much bigger build than we got before.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
There you go. And then we're going to get the reverse. So I'm just going to get this reverse right here. Go right there. And then now we're stepping into the build.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
Cool. And so right here, we're going to get the beat. This is going to be high passed. HP. But one thing to point out is like this is again just a standard break. Is you're taking the groove away in some way and you're presenting them with the main thing. Right now, there is a little bit of extra stuff going on here that's important. Like just that feeling of going down is and opening things up with this, and then the feeling of going down with the bit crushing down on the top end on the drums on the tops. Like it's just kind of like settling the energy, and then boom, what we're doing is we're moving into like a showcase. And so the reason why this video, for example, can be so long is because there's so many good things. There's so much like theory behind what's going on here. Like they're just executing everything so well that it makes me talk about everything because they're doing everything. So for example, like even in the map, if we start breaking this down, this first break here would be technically like the bridge. So we'll talk about the 4 B's of the main break and build, right? Because producers always want to know how to like get this section right, like the main break section. It's a huge section, right? And so what you could do is like in this first break section, then this is kind of like a bridge to this next section. A lot of times like you could just you're just settling the energy in some way. In this case, the way that they're settling the energy is they're just moving into a high pass in a way, right? They're just taking away the low end. Another way you could do this is a strip. A strip is going to be full kick, full bass, and then a hook on top. That one's a very popular thing to do, right? Probably the most popular. This is using just a high pass. It's just settling the energy, stepping down the energy from the drop. All right, so you're just basically removing the low end there, but you still got the tops going. Again, the other way is a strip. Third way is like a cliff dive, where you just dive into basically nothing, except for like the hook or some kind of atmosphere, right? That's pretty uncommon in like tech house, because tech house is pretty high energy, and it's rare that you can really kill the energy that much. But a good example of that, I think, would be like Sidewinder by Gorgon City. They even do that early on. They cliff dive into a vocal rep. So if you want to hear an example of that, that would be an example. But here we have the bridge to the next section, which is kind of the break, and I'll call this the break. Sometimes I'll also call it the basement, which is kind of like usually the lowest energy point in the track. Another thing that we do here is we showcase. We showcase the main thing. All right, so we're bridging, settling the energy, and once that energy is kind of starting to really settle down, then we showcase the main thing. But again, these are just the basic break principles. They're just stretched out a little bit more in like the main break and build. So here we're kind of settling that energy, taking away the low end, and then here we're presenting the main thing. And that's what's going on. So here's the main thing, and that's it. And then over here now is going to be the build. So we're going to start to pivot the energy, right? There's going to be a little bit of a turning point here, a step up with the drums, and this is going to be build, and this is going to be build slow. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get into the next section, which is going to be build fast. And these are really the 4 sections of a break, of the main break and build, of the main break and build. I don't know how to put it. I named it pretty descriptively. But you've got the bridge, where you kind of just start to settle the energy. You've got the proper break, so that's the second B, which is where you showcase the main thing typically. And then the third B here is you build slow. The fourth B is you build fast, right? So bridge, break, with the showcasing, and then you build slow, and then you build fast. That's it. And then the higher level of that is down energy, up energy. That's it. If you get that down, you're good. You know? All right, so let's keep going here. Let's see then how all of that is executed in this track. And so now we're getting into the build. How do they build? Let's see. So high pass drums, and then we have, I'm going to put the high pass on the bass as well. And then we're getting that break synth again. That's open, and let's make sure we rename it open and aggro. So, and then we're getting that ah again. Where's that ah? Okay, what is that? That's a trigger, right? I didn't mention that before at the time, but it's a trigger for the build, right? So one thing I want to point out really quick before we move on is this section right here is its own section for a second. This is the turning point or the pivot, whichever one floats your boat. But this is where you make a definitive move, right? And you're stepping up. So here you can hear
to the rave, to the dance.
Whoop, turn on the metronome. Here we go.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
Right? That's where you're stepping up. It's turning point. We're going from down energy to up energy. All right. So
to the rave, to the dance, 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 to the rave.
There's a little bit of an accent effect there. You can hear it's a high frequency.
To the rave.
Right there. So I'm just going to write high frequency. There you go.
To the rave, to the dance, to the
and then we're going to get that cool kind of like jangly synth again right here.
to the rave, to the dance.
We're getting the main. Oh, no, we're not getting the main vocal. We're getting the rep. And so this is going to be the rave dance rep.
To the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance, to the rave.
There's this interesting thing going on. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I'm going to kind of put it as a down effect right here. It might turn into an up effect, but
To the rave, to the dance, 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 to the
okay, but you can see how things are starting to get crazy here. So,
rave, to the dance, to the rave, to the dance.
okay, so starting the snare roll, interesting. Starting in at the 4, kind of a crazy place to start it. But so here we're also starting to glitch the vocal. So glitch the vocal. Now, what I'm hearing though is they're glitching at the same time as the snare roll. So I'm going to move this up to the snare roll because that's where the right thing is. That's hard for me to hear, actually. I can't hear if the snare roll is actually... Let's see. I don't think it is. I thought that the snare roll was doing 30-second notes because the vocal glitch is doing 30-second notes. But I thought the snare was kind of accenting or accompanying that, but I don't think it is. I think it's just straight 16ths right here. So, but this is glitch. So glitching and delaying. There you go. For what? For chaos, right? Just trying to create chaos. Okay, you can hear the snare. This is LP up. This is low passing up. You can hear the snare opening right here. Okay, so then we have a sub drop right here, which is triggering the build fast, and just where all bets are off and just going crazy. You can hear that big riser kind of start to come in. So it's kind of like a big, hollow riser. Interesting. There's a hat lift that comes in here. There's a new hat that comes in. Let's see something really quick. Oh, nice. We're getting 16ths. Coming up. We're getting 16ths. Do you hear that extra top end in there? There's like, I'm just going to write extra tops. Okay, snare roll. Let's go. Fully open. Okay, this is all just still glitching and getting crazy. We're getting this twinkle. What a funny name. Twinkles in. I'm getting a crash on the effects accent, so let's put a crash in there. So we'll just rename this crash. Okay, and now we're getting a kick roll. So we'll go kick roll. And tom roll. Damn, they're hitting us with all the rolls. And I know they're going to cut it off, but I'm just... Okay, cool. So let's cut all this. All right. So... And a crash roll. This is the first track I think I've heard where all of them are present. Kick roll, snare roll, crash roll, and a tom roll. Like they're just stacking the tension. So we got the snare roll. Let's also throw in crash roll right here. So I'm going to go over here and we'll do a crash roll. Crazy. This is probably like one of my favorite breakdowns. I think my favorite breakdown before this was John Summit's La Danza. I think I was freaking out at the same level because that track's just flawless arrangement wise. But this one is just so next level. Yeah. Even the subtle auto pan on the crash roll. Auto pan? Like you can hear the crash roll start down the middle and start to wobble around in the stereo image.
Get up now.
Nuts. All right, so this is like an accent choke. This is like a crash choke, right? Because this little crash chokes everything here.
Get up now, can't wait.
Right? So that's the pipo again, right? Your pipo pattern. Pipo, what the hell is it? Pattern interrupt payoff. There you go. Good Lord. All right, so this is pipo.
Get up now, can't wait your turn.
And so this is just clean vocal, right? So, okay. I'm just going to copy it because I already got the colors down over here. Although, what are those words?
Get up now, can't wait your turn.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
Yep, that's right.
Get up now.
Okay, cool. So remember, okay? If you've ever seen the movie Dodgeball, the guy says something like dodge, duck, dip, dive, dodge, duck, dip, dive. And same thing with when it comes to remembering what you need to do in the builds, right? Say the same things. Rep, roll, rise, grow. Rep, roll, rise, grow. All right? And basically, I was just remembering that I had to put the fafograph up, so I should probably write that down. Otherwise, I would have forgot. But anyway, yeah, rep, roll, rise, go. So rep, what's going repping here? Well, we've got this guy I think is still repping. We've got the main rep here, which is rave and dance. So that's your hook repetition. Rep, roll. So what's rolling? Everything is rolling. So we've got the kick roll, the snare roll, the tom roll, the crash roll. Again, I can't remember a track that had all of those, especially the tom roll. That's totally unique. So rep, roll, rise. What's rising? Well, there's probably risers, right? Definitely, they're cooked back there. Rep, roll, rise, and then grow. You could just hear the space, right? Grow is all about growing the space. Now, you would think it's like rep, roll, rise, reverb, right? Because then you get 4 R's and that's clean. But the thing is, it's not always reverb. You could still use delay, for example, to grow the space. And so it's rep, roll, rise, grow. But if you want to think rep, roll, rise, reverb as a way to make it easy, there you go.
Get up now, can't wait your turn.
And then so rep, roll, rise, grow, and pipo. There you go. I think that's also why I called it grow, and because it rhymes with pipo. But those are the kind of the 5 things right at the end is rep, roll, rise, grow, and pipo. Rep, roll, rise, grow, and pipo. All right, cool. And so just checking off the boxes, right? And so now let's get into the last drop and finish this thing up. This thing's crazy. Even the MIDI map here is almost 30 tracks, although their project is probably much, much more because I haven't broken down the drums. Yeah, you can have tracks, 150 tracks if you want. But so let's go get let's go copy the drop, hook drop 1 here, at least the start of it all. So like this, move it over. Okay, cool. There we go. And so let's listen now, because remember, we can zoom out now because we've talked about this. We've talked about every level of the arrangement. We've talked about the formula level for a second. We talked about the relation or story level. We talked about the A-B structure level or inside the drops. We've talked about the CLT stories. We've talked about the moments. And so let's zoom into the second level, which is the relations or the story level. And we can ask the question, how is hook drop 2 different or same from hook drop 1? All right. So that's kind of the key question here. All of this stuff is going to be the same for the most part because probably the most important thing ever about arrangement, even more important than all of this stuff. This is actually the lowest level of arrangement. But the most important thing, high level, if you want your arrangements to always work, is you just understand this, what I'm about to say, okay? So here in the first drop, you give them something that they want. Hooks over groove, right? Some cool thing they can dance to, and then some cool hooks that they can get excited about. If you could do that, if you could find cool hooks, put it over a cool groove, you're really in a good spot. But that's what you do. In the first drop, you present them together, all right? And then in the main break and build, you break it apart in some way, right? You're not getting the full groove. You're not getting the full hooks over the groove. They're just separated in some way, right? So people aren't getting fully what they want, and that pisses them off, right? They want it back. And all this tension stuff here, yeah, like all these things naturally build tension, like snare rolls, risers, and reverbs. But remember, what are you building tension for? And what you're building tension for is the return, right? Give it back to them. And so arrangement at the highest level, if you just understand this, like you're going to be good to go. It's like give them what they want, take it away in some way, and then give it back to them, all right? And so when I say give it back to them, the underlying hook structure is going to be the same. We're going to get sound 1, we're going to get sound 2, sound 1, sound 2. All that's going to be the same. This is probably going to be the same. But we can still ask the question, how can we develop HT2 a little bit more? And so that, again, that's the key question here, because a lot of this stuff is going to be the same, but what we want to see is what's not the same. All right. And again, what I want to say for producers watching is like, everyone wants to make drop 2 different, but like that, you got to understand, that's the ultimate bait and switch. No one likes a bait and switch, right? Like all this tension you're building, you're promising the listener you're going to give them the cool thing that they liked earlier. It's like a 2-year-old crying, right? You give a 2-year-old the toy, they're happy. You take it away, they start crying. You give that toy back to them, they're happy again. You give them some other toy, they're probably going to be pissed. The reason that they're crying is because you took this toy away from them. So give them the toy back. You see what I mean? It's very unlikely that they're going to like something else that you give them, right? They're expecting that, and so give it to them. But again, you can elevate the experience. So let's see what's going on. Okay, cool. Front loading. So what front loading is for me is where you take something that came later on as a development, like here, this and you bring it in earlier. So this sound right here, the vocal rep, right? That comes in right away in hook drop 2. That's really cool. That's front loading. That's really cool. I wonder if they're going to step down here. I don't even want to know. So my question is, are they going to take that away here? And if they take it away here, it's like an anti-lift, right? It's like a settle or a fall. You're falling down towards the outro. So if they take it out right here, it's a settling move. You're settling the energy to the outro. Or they could just keep it going. Either way will work, but I'm curious to know what move they make. Okay, so here we have that. But the other thing is with the drums. So if you listen, there's a 16th note shaker in there. Here it's just straight beats and off beats. Here we got a 16th note. It's subtle, it's light, but it's there. So we're going to add that. So we're going to do 6 tops, 16ths. Yeah. So we get a little, this is an elevation. Remember before we were asking, I think I already went through that whole spiel, but this is an elevation. We're elevating HG2 over HG1 in 2 ways so far. Number 1 is the 16th lift, and number 2 is bringing in that Vox rep right there. Let's see what else happens. So let's look at the punk structure here, because this is kind of mapping out everything that we need. But we've got that tom, and then we've got that triggering sound 1. Okay, and then we got the splash hat. Wait a minute, the clap sounds a little bit more intense. Okay, I might be wrong. I don't know. I feel like there's just something else in the drums there that's giving it that extra lift. I don't want to dive too deep into that, but we definitely hear the 16th. Okay, so let's check all this out. So we got the skippy, we've got the double bass hit. So if I get the bass out here, we got this. We got the open hat, the splash hat. We've got the extra little snare skippy. Okay, we've got the ooh, the little dove sound. And we got sound 2, which again delays a little bit to the left. And then we're going to get the splash hat. And then that triggers the vocal coming in.
Now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire.
We got the high pass, and we've got the that second kind of bass.
London's on fire while Paris burns.
And we've got the stab that chokes the bass.
Paris burns.
So basically identical, right? Which again, really, I hope just producers see this, which is like, dude, just give them what they want, you know, just give them the cool thing that you showed them before. You don't have to reinvent the wheel inside a track. It's just a track. You're taking a cool idea that you have, and you're packaging it for the club, you know. It's not crazy. And then, but here, although I have said this track is crazy, so I stand corrected by myself.
Now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Ooh, that's cool. So we have the little doot doot. I think it's this guy right here. So, oh boy. Are they here? It's right there. Okay, so it's not playing here, but it is playing. Well, hold up. Oh, it is playing here. Okay, that makes sense, because it always plays with the thing. But what we need to do is then kind of change that, right? So let's add in. So let's put these guys in here. Okay, so that's the P4 cluster. And then here too, right? So I think it's going to be over here. Doot, doot, doot. Something like that.
Now, can't wait your turn. London's on fire while Paris burns.
Okay, there we go. So we got all that. Nice. And then in the next...
Where you turn, London's on fire while Paris burns.
Okay, so the vocal rep continues. Okay, so we still have the same thing, right? We're getting that entry on the bass. Tom into sound 1. Splash hat. Okay, Skippy. Double bass on the hit, and we get the little doot doot. Splash hat. A little snare syncopation. Boop. Sound 2. Ooh, and then of course we're getting that that little snare bomb, and then the splash hat.
To the rave.
That triggers the edit, and we're gonna get that vocal again.
To the rave, to the dance.
This, ooh.
To the rave, to
So this is opening again gradually, just like before.
the rave, to the dance. To the rave,
Second bass sound that opens up,
to the rave, to the dance.
and then all the
To the rave, to the dance. To the rave, to the dance.
and then we're gonna get this thing that just like reps delay rep. Cool. On 8th notes.
To the dance.
Okay, thing is, no more 16th lift here. That goes away. And then we go like that and like this. And this kind of like, you know, extends right with verb or something.
To the dance.
Ah, cool.
To the rave, to the dance.
Oh, that is cool. So this little sound design perk thing right here continues. All right. So let's see. Let's close this down here like that. All right. Spread that out. Sweet. That's cool. So we got the vocal shot delaying, and then the sound design perk thing doot 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 is also continuing. All right, and then we got the tom thing that just, you know, happens to play at the 4, I believe, because why not, I guess. So right there. Ah, but because that's what plays over here. It plays at the 4 over there. Okay, gotcha. Ah, and then that little bass thing plays right here as well. I don't remember. Does it play over here? Does it play over here? Watch this. Right here. It does. I missed that. I missed that. So we got a little bass opening right here. The details on this track are insane. It just insane. I love it. It's so good. I can't believe I missed that because I broke that down earlier quite a bit, but I didn't hear the bass opening there. And so it just makes me wonder, like, what I missed. Like, I think I try to capture 99% of what's going on, you know? I mean, if I really broke this down to the level that I would want to do it for hours, then I'd find everything. But, like, you know, doing these pretty quick, we find most of it for sure. Okay, we got a kind of cool up effect there. So it's just kind of like wash. Well, it's more like this one. Kind of like fade out. Fade out. Cool. Oh, wow. Wow, that's interesting. That's like that's not even like, that's some kind of like vocal effect. And then that kind of like delays out or kind of I don't know what to say, like fades out, washes out. you know, whatever. There we go. Kind of. So we'll do Vox effects up. Some kind of like almost a bit crushing type of thing there. All right, a little bit of a reverse right here. Oh man, all I can say is holy shit. Man, what a track. So kind of the two things finally just to take away, like, is I really broke down the punk structures in the middle of the video. So that's definitely one of the biggest takeaways. Second biggest takeaway for me is the main break and build. And then third takeaway from all this is just zooming out on both of those, on the punks, the moment structure, and then the main break and build structure with the 4Bs is like, it's just what I say, like execution of principles, right? If I'm going to put an acronym like EOP, right? Execution of principles. But it's not just execution of principles. It's creative execution of principles. Everything, like if you just look at the screen, you see all those boxes. Like all of those boxes are literally playgrounds, like sandboxes. You just can play inside of them, you know, like it's just, that's what's going on is like, just obviously drums, like you got to find like genre specific, but you're playing within like the genres and what you like, you know, you're making the genre. So you like the genre, but you're just playing within it side of it. Like all of these are just little tiny sandboxes that you can play in, you know? And, but the little sandboxes are very structural, right? That's probably the main point of this whole video is it's very structured. There's so much structure, and I broke down pretty much the entire theory of the structure in this video. But then what you do is you just step inside to that structure and you play around with things that you think are cool. And then you get something like this that's highly structured, but very unique and creative, you know? And so it's this kind of blending of the two, right? You can have is creativity within structure, you know? Otherwise, it would just be chaos. It would just be a chaotic experience. And if you think about it, what's the difference between music and noise? Well, music is just structured noise. It's noise structured in a way that appeals to us. That's what music is, right? When you're thinking about the harmonic series, that's just a structured distribution of noise, a structured distribution of sine waves that appeals to us, you know? And so if you think about production at the same way in a high level, like there's that high level structure, but then there's a creativity within it. And so that's kind of what these whole things are there to break down. These things are just to convey that to you, to show you what the structure is, and then give you the encouragement to just experiment and play around and mess around in there. All right. The FAFO graph, right? Fuck around, find out. The more you fuck around, the more you find out in a good way, in a good fun way. All right. And so that's probably the highest level takeaway I can say. Like there's just so much good stuff in this. I'd just be talking here for another hour or two about all the little things in here. But main takeaway is just to boil it down, is just creativity within structure. Just have fun. Just like know the structure. Know what you're trying to do. Know the importance of the structure for the listener's experience, right? Because they're drunk, they're dancing. You got to hit them with the good stuff. Structure gives you the ability to define what a priority is. It gives you the ability to say what's important, right? Noise, by definition, there's nothing important in noise. It's all random. There's nothing important. There's no possibility of a priority in noise. But there is when you start to structure things and you start to create a hierarchy. But that's what allows you to tell the listener what is important for them to experience and feel. All right. And so that's the high level takeaway, is creativity within structure. If you have any questions about what we covered, leave a comment down below. And if you have any comments or insights that you want to leave about this track yourself, definitely leave a comment down below. And I will see you in the next video or breakdown. Don't forget, you can download this as a MIDI map if you want it. And yeah, I'll see you later. Peace.